Welcome back to the Resilient Man podcast. Today I sit down with Carl, a fitness coach who's overcome setbacks that tested his resilience. From losing his home after an 11-year relationship to battling depression, anxiety and intrusive thoughts. Carl opens up about the small, consistent actions that helped him rebuild his life, the importance of routine and why seeking help early can make all the difference. Whether you're in the middle of your own storm or looking to build resilience before it hits, this episode is packed with real, relatable insights that you can use today. Let's dive in. Paul, welcome to the Resilient Man podcast.
Thank you, James. Glad to be here, mate.
So as you know, the Resilient Man podcast is all about those moments of adversity, those moments where we've struggled, and the purpose of this podcast is to kind of break that down and show men who are currently struggling that they can get through it. So if you had to pick 2 to 3 key moments for you of those times of adversity, those times of struggle, what would those be for you?
One that points out to me is probably I went through a big breakup with a long 11-year relationship and then lost my home. So then I ended up on a mattress at my brother's. So that was to me the lowest point, which led to depression and everything else. Yeah, so that was probably the strongest point in my moment. But over the years there's been other things. But yeah, that's probably the biggest point for me. But the overcome is just building yourself back up again. Slowly, it just takes a little bit of time. Then you get where you are when you get there. Unfortunately, it's different for everyone. But the key thing is to do, because you can wallow for as long. And what I found was I just had to just get up. So I got up and carried on. And then it just got better and better and better.
That's really positive to hear. So can you take us back to that moment briefly? How long ago was this?
This was years ago. Yeah, so yeah, just years ago. And when it happened, I was just thinking, what do I do now? Like, what do I do now? But as you know, I'm into fitness, so that was my outlet. That was the one thing that I had sort of still in my back pocket that I can do every day, which is going out running in nature and stuff like that, which 100% helps. That is one thing I would suggest to anyone who suffers with anything, is just get outside, movement in general, rather than sitting around. Yeah, so it was just about a case of just building it and moving. And I knew I couldn't stay where I was with what was happening. And I knew at that point as well, just this stuff happens in life and you do have to carry on. I've got kids, so you have to keep going. So they're probably my savior, I'd guess, as well. Just knowing that I have to be there for them, and no matter what.
So where did you go after so you lost your house, and what happened then? Where did you go?
So I ended up at my brother's for about 2 months on a mattress, trying to figure life out. And then, got stuff together, got another home after a few months, but it took some doing. But yeah, in that time, it was pretty good to be around family and stuff, I guess. And then, so about 3 months, I think I was there. And then, just finally got my own pace. And then from that's where like the rebuilding really started to happen, because I was then at that point when I got my own place, I had no one around me, like all the time. There's no like people coming in and out and stuff. So that's where the real work had to happen, because otherwise I could sit there, or I could turn to alcohol or stuff to pass the time. But it wasn't. What I did was, create this fitness business, which is what I went into. Again, it was just about moving forward, creating something, doing something, and just keep going, really.
How did you pick yourself up during those times where you were struggling, when you've got your own place now?
Yeah. Yeah, so really it's hard to say really, but like I said, like doing exercise to me and sticking to a routine. I had to stick to a routine. So, that was as little as making my own bed. I know it sounds silly, getting up, making my own bed, starting the day positive, and it sounds silly, but anyone who's struggling or anything will probably understand what I'm saying. You do these little things and you can tick them off in your head. Start off by making the bed, then brushing your teeth, showering. All these little things, they add up. They add up, and then you keep sticking to that routine. And that also helps you get better and gets you out of a rut.
So building that structure, and is that something you found over time, or did you kind of know you was missing a structure and then built that?
Well, at that point, I already knew, because actually before that, many years ago, I suffered with like anxiety and depression years before. So I kind of knew what I had to do, if you know what I mean. I guess obviously there's different types of it and your different scenarios of life and why things happen and stuff like that. Yeah, so I kind of knew, which was, I wouldn't say lucky, because it just means I suffered with it before, but it's, yeah, I just had that sort of in my back pocket, basically, of knowing what to do, you know. And then like there's books I was going to say, like, because there's this book here, which is fantastic, basically overcoming unwanted intrusive thinking is what I suffered with for a long time. So that's not just negative talking to yourself. That is thoughts that you don't want to be there on repeat continuously all day. And it could be anything. It can be anything. And it's always something that you don't want to think about. So that's what I suffered with. So I've done lots of reading as well to understand what's going on when it originally things started happening, anxiety, social anxiety, the thinking.
Is there anything you've learned from those books or those things that research you've done that you could share?
Yeah, well, the books, especially this book for that particular thing that I was suffering with, the intrusive thinking, was that I wasn't crazy, for one, and that so many other people suffer with it, and it just breaks it down into detail, and it also breaks how to get out of the cycle of the thinking. And what I learned is that you don't give the thought any power. So as soon as you give the thought power, which is when the thought comes in, if you think about it, then you're igniting a circle, basically, and it'll just keep coming back. So you have to let it flow past, acknowledge it, just let it flow past. And that was tricky. That was real tricky at first, but you have to practice these things as well. You can't just, if you're seeking therapy or books, you can't just do it, and you have to keep at it. You have to keep at the practicing. And that is difficult, but 100% works. 100%.
So if there's someone listening who's got those intrusive thoughts like you mentioned, what would be your advice to them?
Definitely see therapy, because and don't, just because you have one therapist, they might be bad. They might not be one that gels with you. Don't think therapy is rubbish. You know, you just have to go to another therapist. Sometimes the waiting list is a bit long, but I've seen therapists, and some of them are, in my opinion, well, I probably didn't gel with them, or probably something wasn't there, but it weren't no connection. But I've seen some fantastic people that like really helped. And one particular one was the one you mentioned about this book, which is a CBT-based book. And also reading, but look for the good books. Like, find the good books on Google. Don't just pick. There's so many. And read and practice. Practice it is what the therapist is teaching you. It's like having physio. You can't go to physio and get better. They'll give you exercises to do after. And you have to keep doing them to get better. It's the same with your mind. You have to keep doing it.
I love that. And that's like going to the gym. You can't just go to the gym once and then expect a six pack.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, because your mind it's a muscle, basically, isn't it? And it's through repetitiveness that you're going to change your thought cycles. But you have to be going down the right path. Otherwise, you're going to change it for the worse.
So what do you do now? So that those thoughts come in, you let them float past. Then do you like, right, I need to do something else, or go to the gym? How do
No,
you?
so when the thoughts come in, I thought as well, this is another thing to add, that if I ignored them, that I would get rid of them. But it wouldn't. It actually encourages to come back, because then your brain thinks, oh, we need to think about this now because you're ignoring it. It's very strange. But once you read things, especially books like this, you start to understand how the brain works. So it's not about dismissing them. It's just about acknowledging them. They're there. They don't mean nothing. Thoughts mean nothing. They don't mean anything. We have like 4,000 thoughts a day or whatever it is, or a second. They don't mean anything. And it's only how we perceive the thought, you know, that it means something. We put emotion to it. but you don't need to. But now, because I've done this sort of self-work, my brain basically does it automatically. I still know that things are there. I mean, we all have intrusive thinking. One therapist said to me about you driving down the motorway and you ever think that you're just going to steer off into the midsection and just crash your car. And I was like, yeah, I've thought that. He goes, yeah, so have I. Because people have these crazy thoughts. I want to be like to jump off there. You know, we have them. It's just not, you know, they're not real, but sometimes they can affect you and affect your emotions, and you've given it power. And the idea is to not give it power.
What you said there, you said you let the thought flow in and you let it go by not attaching an emotion to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you, because there's and you might have got this through your book or not, but there's a little practice which I sometimes use, which is called air. So it's having that awareness of that thought, which is the A. The I is to interrupt that thought. So a lot of the time, if we just like sit on the sofa and like wallow it, self-pity. Whereas if we can stand up and move or do something to stop that thought and to what you mentioned earlier, stop that cycle of those feelings. And then the R is to replace it. So to try and flip it on its head a little bit and replace that thought into one that serves you and one that's more positive.
Yeah. So every negative, give yourself a positive. Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, it's the same as, I obviously relate to exercise a lot, but it's the same as when I mentioned movement, because it's that moving bit that causes it. If we sit there and think, then the chances are it's going to turn into negative thinking. If you're not in the best of moods or, something's going wrong. But if you create the movement, you get out and you're moving, plus you're going to get endorphins and dopamine and stuff, but your thought process will change. Yeah, there's nothing worse if you're unwell in any way mentally, staying still and just being with yourself, because you're going to suffer even more. And probably leads to substance abuse or alcohol abuse or whatever, because you're going to look for an outlet, but your outlet should be therapy or should be exercise or productive things, because then you're going to retrain your brain to be more productive. That's my personal sort of thing on it, because that's what I did, be productive.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, it was having a focus. So when I struggled with anxiety, I was really interested in investing in property, even though I got no capital, but I enjoyed learning about how other people was making money from it. So I kind of fully engrossed myself into learning how to build like a property business and sourcing properties and stuff. And that took my sole focus away from the fact that I was feeling really anxious and I was feeling depressed.
Yeah. Definitely focusing on something helps. I remember when I used to, when I first started getting it as like a younger man, I would do a lot of puzzles, because it gets you thinking. Like, does that bit go there? And then you're not thinking about what you don't want to think about. And that was my sort of outlet. That was when I was younger. As little as that is, it still helped.
I can fully relate to that because, again, when I was anxious, I used to do like a Sudoku before bed, just to change my mind to something else.
Yeah. All those little things. You'll sort of find your way, like someone might like reading, someone like puzzles or Sudoku. It definitely helps, because your brain's instantly thinking about other things. We are our own worst enemy. I also suffered with anxiety. I've had it all. And that's a dreadful feeling. I used to wake up with it when it was at its height. But and then it turned into like social anxiety. I didn't want to go out anymore or like socialize. It really like panicked me, which is complete opposite to what I do now. Yeah. And my thing to that was as well is the more I found that I hid from it and gave into it. So if it would say, I'd be like, don't go out. The more I didn't go out, the worse it would get. Because again, I was giving it energy. I was giving it what it wanted. So it is, no matter how hard this is to break the cycle and do the thing that you don't want to do. It will be hard. But once you do it, you had the anxiety to do it. Once you're there, or once you've doing the thing that was giving you that fear, that horrible feeling, you're actually like, oh, this is all right. And then you do it again, like, oh, this is all right. And then before you know it, the anxiety just is not as bad. Like now I have no anxiety. Like it doesn't even exist in my body. And I used to have it where it was like horrendous. I'd wake up in a panic and stuff like that about my day and stuff. So again, you can overcome it, but you have to work. You have to do the work with a therapist or reading. Yeah, it can take, it took me a long time, to be fair, but yeah, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, even if you don't see it. Because when you're in the depths of it, you most certainly don't see it.
Yeah. I think I quite resonate with that as well in terms of the anxiety. And I think often it's that first step which is really hard. So essentially for me, I was struggling with stress at work. I was like burning out, taking on too much work, trying to prove myself. So I just kept taking on more work, more pressure. I'd work faster. That was the thought process I made. And I burnt out, and I ended up having a panic attack one night. And the next day, that sent my anxiety through the roof. And I just remember being stuck, like curled up on the board. And so I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to go to work, and I didn't want to be on my own. And it took my missus like say, "No, get up, go to work." And going to work that day was really hard. Like, I went into work, I just burst into tears. That was hard. The second day I went into work, I burst into tears again. But the third day, slightly easier. The fourth day, slightly easier. And I just think I'd be in a like completely different space if I'd let anxiety win and I'd stayed at home and not gone into work.
Yeah. It would just continue its wrath in your body. It would just keep, more you give to it, more it's going to affect you. That's how I see it as well. I mean, like you said, like it is difficult. I mean, you had someone there. I mean, obviously some people don't have someone there. That's the tricky thing.
Yeah.
You know, some people don't have that person to speak to or be an outlet. That's why it's so important that people who don't have someone do see a therapist, you know, like Mind or whoever, or yourself or anyone, just a coach, someone who can talk you through it or be there, you know, when you haven't got anyone, definitely. Because it just takes that first step, reaching out, Rob. Like, you know, you had your partner to say no go, which forced, and at the time you was probably like, what are you telling me to do? Like, well, no, I'm not going. Do you know what I mean? You probably felt like that, but now you look back, you're like, whoa, yeah, it's the right thing to do. And that's why we need someone, because sometimes we don't see it for ourselves.
No, and I think also as well, we don't recognize sometimes the impact of our own mental health on those around us as well. In terms
Yeah,
of
for sure. Yeah. Because when I had it, I was definitely worried about my kids seeing it, like their dad and stuff like that. So, and then to be honest, it kind of fed into it. It made it worse because I was so worried about what other people were like, how it's going to come off as well, that it kind of fed into it. But yeah, it definitely affects people around us, emotionally, physically, 100%, especially if you've got kids and young ones as well. They're going to be more, you know, they're going to notice things are off. But, you know, that's, again, that just go back to, that's why it's so important you get fixed or you try and heal yourself in one way or another, because it's not only affecting you, it will affect other people. And you also, if you're feeling depression, you will put that burden onto yourself and you will think even worse of yourself because you're affecting other people. Because that's what we do when we're depressed. You know, everything's depressing. Yeah.
I think as well, I think it's important to recognize it for what it is. When I was struggling with anxiety, certainly I was kind of in denial about it, despite having this control, despite me going into work and bursting into tears, right? I was kind of like in denial. No, I'm
Yeah.
okay. I'm clearly not okay.
Yeah. I think that's a man thing. I
Yeah.
think so, because the more men I've spoke to, you know, that thing where you're like, you're right. And they're like, you're right. You've seen like adverts about it and they're not all right. They're most certainly not all right. But that is what we do. We're in denial. Like, no, I'm all right. Like, and you're not. You cried earlier. You're not, do you know what I mean? It's okay to cry, but something's not right. But yeah, we do that. I did it for a long time. Someone, I don't know who it was, someone said to me, like, you ever thought about seeing something? I was like, what for? What are you going on about? Yeah. But yeah, that's why mental health is so tricky to navigate, because it's different for everyone. Not even seeing it, or, you know, the recovery type, everything. It is so difficult. That's why I definitely speak to a coach, professional, 100%.
Just having that awareness, I guess, of like you mentioned it earlier, you've been struggling before So you had that awareness, you kind of knew what you needed to do to then put yourself in a better place. But yeah, certainly I talk about this thing called AAT, which is awareness, having that awareness. And then it's reaching out for help
Yeah.
and accepting it, because that's something else that I really struggled with. So like my dad was saying, you should speak to someone. And I'm in denial going, no, it's fine. It's just a phase. I'll talk to me next week and I'll be fine. I really feel like that is something that you just have to come to terms with and like accept help. Which leads me on to my next question for you and about therapy. Did someone like point you towards therapy, or did you get to a point where you was like, actually, I need to speak to someone?
Yeah, my brother, to be fair, because he's suffered himself, and he's the one who pointed me basically to it and just said there would help, which is pretty grateful for now if I look back at it, because I think the longer we leave it, the worse it can get. But yeah, it was my brother reached out to me, and then he's the one who said about it, and then I think it was the NHS. I think I did the free one, but the waiting list again is so long. And if you're fortunate enough to pay privately or pay for a coach or pay for someone who can help you, then brilliant. At that particular time, I wasn't. So it was NHS waiting list, which is a bit long. So, if you think something's off, then get in there soon, because you don't want to be in the depths of it trying to seek help and you have to wait 3 months still. So it's better to try and seek that help sooner rather than later.
I think I was quite fortunate. So I went to the doctors, and the doctors referred me to a charity. So although it was private, it wasn't really expensive.
Yeah.
And I was able to get what I needed there and then. And I think I did a block. Can't remember if it was like 3 months, 4 months, or something like that. And then afterwards, obviously, started to feel a lot better. What was before you went to therapy, what was your like opinion of therapy, or like mindset or attitude towards it, and did that change?
I didn't really. Yeah, to be honest, I thought it was a bit nonsense. I won't lie, because it's just someone talking to you. And I was like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to at that particular time. Because obviously there's different types of therapy. You have to, but yeah, I didn't really think much of it, to be honest. Like the initial thought of the process, I thought this is a waste of time. This is a waste of time. But it isn't. It isn't. You have to give it a chance as well. Because even once you're in there, I was still thinking like, this ain't for me. I can't wait for this to be over. Do you know what I mean? Like the first, like the hour. But then I went back again, and then I started realizing, oh, this is actually helping. You do have to give it a chance. If you don't like it for the first session, or whoever's helping you, then give it another chance. Then go back and go back. So anything really, innit? You might not like it the first time, but you might like it the second time or the third time. And it did help. But yeah, get over the first session, second, third, and you'll start seeing the benefits for sure.
Resonate with that, because that was exactly my thing. I was like, who's this person sat in this room? Like, what's this going to do? I think you just have to be like humble yourself, say, I am struggling this, and just be open to having that conversation and sticking it out, rather than just saying, oh, I tried it after one session and then moving on.
But again, I'll go back to just the man thing. I think us as men as well, we want help, but we don't want it at the same time. It's like a weird, so even opening up, it could be hard, and just getting help of someone else. Like, this person could be younger than you who's helping your mental health, but, you just gotta do it. Just facing it alone doesn't help, especially if you're unknown of what's going on. The second time it happened, I didn't need help. I kind of knew, dealt with it. It's fine. But you learn these tools from books, from therapy, like, and they can stay with you. You have a little refresher every now and again, but they stay with you.
So, moving this out, like the people around us, how would you approach a friend who you think was not quite themselves?
Well, I had a friend like that, and I'm going to be honest, it is difficult. He's actually a work colleague, amazing guy, and he was suffering. I knew it. So all I would do is when he was at work, I would go for a coffee with him, but I wouldn't even talk about it. I'll just give them the opportunity to talk to me about it. And then we'll just have normal conversation. Little bits might come up, and then stuff like that, and then build it on that. You know, I know like when people like, you're suffering stress, like, what you stressed about? Like, your life's easy. It doesn't matter. Same as depression. You can have it all in the world and still be depressed. Yeah. You have to like help people around you. That was my way of doing it, because I didn't want to say, you know, you should speak to someone straight away, because they might just get their backs up or be like, well, I'm fine, like we did, So it's more like letting them trying to talk about and just getting bits of information, like going for coffee or going for something to eat. Yeah, and then just talking to them about it. And then I would share my experience with what I've done and stuff like that with them. And then you mention about, people that can help and stuff like that. But yeah, never just say to someone, what's wrong with you? Like, actually annoys me a bit, that does, when people do that. But yeah, it's the same as, you can't sometimes know that someone's suffering because it's inside. They can't visually see it. But if you work closely with someone like I did with this person or a partner or something, you'll start seeing like telltale signs of maybe getting up a bit later or just not being as hygienic, or, there's little signs that will show up before they let you know.
Yeah, I've noticed it in some people where they don't quite see themselves, or like what you said, their own self-care. They come with scruffy hair or unironed shirts or turn up late, or there are some telltale signs. What I like about that bit that you mentioned there is about going out for a walk, taking them out of that office environment, first of all. And one of the things we spoke about previously is creating a safe space, creating that space for our friends to open up with us and have that conversations. And there's a phenomenon in psychology, I can't remember the name of it, whereby if we open up and share our experience, our struggles, the other person feels more connected to us and they're more likely to share what they're going through as well.
Definitely. Yeah, because you feel more comfortable because you resonate with them, and they're like, oh, that sounds, For instance, there was another colleague at work who was suffering really bad with OCD, but it's only because I knew someone, a family member, who suffered badly with it, that I saw it happening, and he didn't even know. He had literally thought, like, well, he either thought he was losing his mind, or he thought it was normal at first. Then he actually thought he was like losing his mind because he was unable to even drive his car in the end because he kept thinking he was hitting someone and stuff like that. And he was washing his hands a lot. And I said, have you heard of OCD? He was like, no. I had a little chat to him about that. Again, some people don't really know it's happening to them or what's happening, which is very difficult if you are, by yourself. Yeah, it's a tricky one, that if you don't know what it is that's going on, to what to do. I think that's one of the biggest struggles with the mental health. We have different things, but you have the mental health, and people don't want to talk, or they're scared to talk about, or want to face it alone. And you have other people who don't really know what's going on, if you know what I mean. They don't, sometimes might think it's the norm to not want to go outside, to wash your hands 10 times a day, if it would depend on what you're suffering with. That's the tricky bit, is trying to have people realize what's happening so they can get help.
Completely agree with that, because like what I was saying, if I'd gone through that anxiety stuff and stayed at home, that might have been the new norm for me, whereas that wasn't normal, and I actually needed to get out. I needed to do the opposite. But if I hadn't had, again, the kick from the missus, then I could, and I would have been on my own, I could have well stayed there and kind of spiraled. She was on the other foot. So if you say that you were struggling mentally now, what would be the steps you'd taken? Who would you kind of talk to or open up to?
My brother. I think going to a family member is one of the easiest things. If you've got family that you speak to and stuff, again, everyone's different to do that. I think I would know now in my position if I needed to go back to therapy, and I would have no qualms of going back if I needed to. There's no shame in that. But yeah, family for me, really. Yeah, and if you happen to know someone who's been through stuff, it's a lot easier. too, because they get it. They're not just looking at you like, that's weird. They understand that completely that's normal with what's happening with you. So yeah, family would be my outlet, my brother in particular.
What I find interesting, I was speaking to someone who's recently was struggling with anxiety, and he said something to me which I've always said, which was mental health has always been just like two words until you experience it,
Yeah.
and then it's got a whole different of a meaning. And I kind of get what you were saying there when you're speaking to someone who else who has also suffered and in a different place now, how they can relate and they can get it, and they'll probably be better at actually listening and understanding and empathizing with you as well.
Yeah, definitely. I remember on the therapist I saw, he said the best people who become therapists are the people that went through it before, because they have a true understanding. No matter how much you learn, they've faced it head on and dealt with it. Like they're the most experienced people and the best therapists, he was saying, because he was telling me about his issues. And that's why he became a therapist, to help people, because he faced it and didn't want other people to face it.
Again, I resonate with that. That's why I'm trying to focus a lot on helping people with stress before they get to burnout, before they get to anxiety, before they go through all that struggles that I did, to help them earlier on.
Yeah, I mean, stress is a major one, because sometimes we don't even know it's happening, and you can get stressed about all these little things, but there's a cause by it. Because you're suffering with stress, you'll face anything. You're kicking your train off the curb can trigger you off because you're heightened. You're ready to blow because you're thing. But what stress can also do, that I find, if you let it, opens up to other avenues of mental health, anxiety, depression. That usually is the trigger I've found of what's going to come next if you don't manage it. So now when I, run a coaching business, so it can be quite stressful, but, I make sure that I do ice baths, which I think are fantastic, running, working out, trying to eat healthy to maintain, because I know if I get too stressed, I know what could come off of it. So it's definitely just trying to keep that at bay, because I believe we'll all face it one time in our life.
But there's things we can't get away from, right? There's things in life. The thing that comes to my mind is like loss and grief and stuff. Like the chances are we're going to experience it with those around us at some point, or high stress situations through work. So I think a lot of the time it's identifying those signs within yourself and feel like you've really got that down at the moment. But that's only because of what you've been through. You recognise those signs and you now know what to do.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm fortunate enough to know, but I only fortunate enough to know from the past. But yeah, that's why learning about it or something, or trying to catch it early, is going to help, because the more ammunition you have is what's going to back you up in the future, because it's going to come, like you said. There's going to be a death. Everyone faces that in their life at one point, unfortunately. And you have no idea how you're going to handle it. You're going to have a breakup. You might lose someone close. You never know. And then that's when you're going to be pushed to the test of things. And it's good to have things in some ammunition to help anyway. Not saying it's going to be perfect, but to help with what's going to come after that.
So you've touched on it a little bit, but so you're running a business full time now, and so the question was just going to be around maintaining your own mental well-being. I know you've mentioned about structure and exercise, but you were just to break that down a little bit more as to what you do to maintain.
Yeah, well, with my job as well, because I obviously work with people, coach them. Like they come to me with their issues, and I wouldn't be able to do my job unless I was like mentally sound, because once you get to know them and you work with them, they will share quite a lot of information. So I have to make sure that I'm maintaining a solid mind, or as best I can anyway. But yeah, running outdoors, like I couldn't say that enough, being outdoors. Like for me, going through the woods and having the sun come through and hearing the birds tweet and stuff, or running through it, is just something else. It really does. You just get away from the noise and the social media and the cars and and you're just there, and it's lovely. Ice baths are fantastic. Hate it while I'm in there. Amazing when I get out. The clarity in the mind is fantastic. I mean, even if I feel it in the day and I feel like I could just feel it, like, not like I'm going to blow, but I could just feel I'm a bit agitated in some way, then I'll jump in the ice bath or I'll go for a run, 10, 15 minutes, don't have to be much. Uh, and yeah, and that's what I have to do. But also as well as, I guess in part from, say, that kind of related would be sort of time management towards business is massive to lower stress. And again, I stick to a routine. I'm a very routine guy, and I believe that helps. And not to be disheartened if I break out the routine, but I have some things I can do, and there's obviously lots of spare time. But routine that helps me manage and stay clear on what I need to do for the day and stuff, which helps with stress, I believe, because there's nothing worse. We've all done it. You know, you get to the end of the day and there's about 6 things left that you wanted to do, or you was meant to go and do that, and then you know you can get quite stressed about it. So managing time, just routine, and exercise.
You say managing time and exercise, managing time, sorry, and the work. So do you set like boundaries for yourself to say, okay, I'm not going to work past 6 o'clock? What does that look like?
No, I actually, with my clients, like, they will message me any time, 7 days a week, to be fair. Only because I feel obliged. They've paid for a service and I want to help them. And they might have a struggle that they're facing with, so I try and help them. With stuff like that, I don't, but I'm okay with that. And I will know if it's getting too much and I will dial that back. In regards to like time management, it is, you know, spending time with my partner, spending time with my kids, not going all in on the work, having a sort of shut off point. Not every day, because some days I can work till really late, but having that sort of point where, right, I'm having dinner with my partner and we're gonna be doing something in the evening to, again, manage the stress, manage the home life environment. It all adds up together.
But like spending time doing what you value. Because often when we're trying to build businesses, and I can relate to this, we all business, 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 and neglect those
Yeah.
around us, or quite easily fall into that trap.
Oh yeah. That is, yeah. So that's something I'm not saying perfect. I try my best to try and get that. They call it work-life balance. I don't even know if it exists, but I try and get a balance of something anyway. So I'm not just driving to work, because I know what will come out of that. It won't be good. So, and if I did get mentally unwell or overstressed, then my work's going to suffer, my client's going to suffer, my family's going to suffer. You might see that as a lot of pressure on myself, but I don't. I see it as I know I have to keep myself good for everything, really. And it's fine, because, if you're good, then you notice that people around you are going to be okay as well. Not like, like it's amazing, but you're better for everyone if you're doing well. And
Yeah.
you can feel it. I think you have like an aura when you're when you're feeling a certain way. I think people give off like auras. I think you can sense sometimes if someone's facing depression, you could just feel it sometimes. That's what I think anyway. And you give off a vibe, and then when you give off a vibe, if someone comes in the room and they're chirpy and happy and chatty, then you feel quite chirpy, happy and chatty. But if you go in going, yeah, today's real shit, today was rubbish and all that, then you can lower your vibe.
I was going to say something along the same line in terms of like energy and stuff. It's like sometimes, I mean, I fall for this all the time where I'm like working really hard and the missus is really happy to come home and see me. And I'm just like, oh, just wait a minute. And I'm just trying to work away. And then that impacts then her mood.
Yeah.
And it's just important to have that awareness, I think, and not impact their energy as well. So what does the future hold for Carl and your business?
Yeah, just grow, scaling the business, but keeping it as stress-free as possible, basically. Yeah, and just I want to help as many clients as I can. My main aim is weight loss, making people feel good about themselves. And I believe that mental health and fitness are entwined one way or another. And I really do, because if you physically exercise, your mental health will get better. There's I've said it before, I've been on antidepressants, and I think that exercise helped me out a lot more than any medication. I'm not saying that's for everyone, but I believe it did, and that's one thing I focus on my clients as well. No matter what they're doing, I always like when we have check-ins and stuff, always discuss how they're feeling, other than the fitness part itself, even though that's what they're doing. Yeah, so it's just doing more of what I'm doing on a larger scale, helping more people as most I can.
I love that. And to end with the signature question, what does mental resilience mean to you?
I would say, like I spoke about before, preparing yourself basically, because there will be a time where it will happen, unfortunately. And then, yeah, building that resilience up towards it, because yeah, if you do have some sort of knowing of what it is, then you'll be able to help yourself a lot better. And if anyone's like listening as well, I would go back to saying as well, seek help if you are facing it, and stick with the therapist. And they also might not be the best therapist, and don't give up on therapy or help, like, because it will help. I guarantee it.
Yeah, again, I couldn't agree with you more. We've both been there. We've both been to therapy. We're both out the other side, and we're both a lot better for it. Carl, thank you very much for being a
Thank
guest,
you,
mate.
James, mate.
Really enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you.